At Avonmore, we love milk. It's the reason we get up in the morning, very early in the morning. And we want everyone to be free to share our passion. Introducing Avonmore lactose-free milk. The only fresh milk that's suitable for those who love milk but are lactose intolerant. And because it's from Avonmore, you know it still has all the nutritional benefits and taste you'd expect from Avonmore. Yes, you can, with Avonmore lactose-free milk.
There are people on every team in hockey in that business for a reason. It's because, you know, the stats don't lie.
Right.
If you have a really long history from a certain player saying that they, you know, sort of consistently play a certain way, probably the pattern is probably there for a reason. So I think of these poor guys who are on the stats team for the Penguins hearing that and just think their heads probably explode when they hear Jim Rutherford make a comment like, well, we don't care about that when we look at this guy. But and then he talks about heart and grit and character, and you just hear all these words and say, oh no, what's he doing? You know? So,
yeah. If I'm running the analytics for the Penguins, I'm like, so should I just take the week off? Do you even care what I think? Or
should I just resign? Because does it even matter? Like, what am I doing here?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Donut Bag, part of the Pod Hub Network. In this episode, I welcome back Angie Carducci from Inside Hockey Magazine, and we talk about everything going on with the Penguins. They have a nice little point streak going on, but they're still fighting for their playoff lives. The Donut Bag starts right now.
Now it's time to talk Penguins. My next guest is a favorite on this podcast and a favorite on Josh Taylor's show on 93.7 The Fan from InsideHockey.com, Angie Carducci. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I got to ask, are you a fan of the superhero movies, the Iron Man and all that gobbledygook?
Not so much the Iron Man. I definitely a fan of superhero movies. I grew up a really hardcore Batman fan, and that was the days of like the Adam West, Burt Ward Batman. So I grew up a huge fan of that TV show, and the subsequent Batman movies are a big favorite of mine. The Wonder Woman movies are a big favorite of mine. But yeah, I'll definitely go see pretty much any superhero movie that comes out.
Okay, so in the Marvel movies, the big bad guy is Thanos, and like a lot of those movies, he'll send somebody to do his whatever he wants, and they won't get it done at the end. The hero wins in the end, and at the end of one of the movies, he says, after his flunky fails, he says, "Fine, I'll do it myself." And that is Sidney Crosby. Sidney Crosby, after they were out of the playoff picture, I think he just said, you know what, fine. I'm just going to put this team on my back. Fine. Doesn't it feel like that?
He does it all the time, you know, and I feel like he does it within games. I feel within single games, Sidney Crosby has these moments of, okay, fine, this team is just kind of slogging along and maybe not expending the effort that he pretty much seems to expend just about every game. I mean, think of the last time that you looked at the Penguins and thought, wow, Sidney Crosby is really not putting forth the effort tonight. Like he's just, where's Sid? He just doesn't. And he just seems to have this, this tireless work ethic. And he is a guy who is fully capable of taking that team on his back and just willing them to win. And it really feels like he's done that for, within individual games during this period, but really just coming down to this playoff push, watching the level to which he's elevated his game. I think Sidney Crosby really has realized that it's getting to the point, the Penguins being on the outside of a playoff spot, looking in at the late point in the season they were just a few games ago. That's pretty scary stuff when you're Sidney Crosby, and stuff that you're not used to. They haven't missed the playoffs since the guy was like 18 years old, and I don't think he wants to start now. So he really just continues to make you shake your head with the level he's able to find on a nightly basis. And I don't understand why he doesn't get more consideration for, you never hear him in the Hart Trophy discussion, except in Pittsburgh. But outside of Pittsburgh, I just don't think he gets the credit. And I think at this point, people, tend to take it for granted. And
Exactly.
the whole game, really. And Mike Sullivan talks so much about his 200-foot game, and I know I've mentioned him for. I'd love to see him be considered for the Selke Award at some point. He's just a guy that when he sees any weakness in his game, it just takes a laser focus to that part of his game and works to make it better. And to me, like, that's the most impressive thing about him. When you're a player of that caliber, but you're still looking at what can I improve, and that's what makes him Sidney Crosby.
I remember he was weak on faceoffs at one point in his career, so he's like, I'm going to work on faceoffs, and he became one of the best at it. It's like, it's crazy. It's crazy to think, at one point, you work hard to become the best, and he is the best, and he just works even harder to get better. It's amazing.
It really is, and I think he's driven by, I think he's driven by continuing to succeed, but I also think he's driven now by these up and comers in the game. You look around and you hear all the time, oh, who's the best in the game? Is it Connor McDavid? There's a lot of people that would make that case now, and Sidney Crosby doesn't want to be left out of that discussion. And I saw a poll recently. It was in The Athletic. Did you see this poll where they asked
I did.
Anonymously who the best player in the game was?
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that overwhelmingly, and the players were anonymous, so there's no repercussions on you for who you say. And when they were asked anonymously, overwhelmingly they choose Sidney Crosby as the best player in the game. Connor McDavid was second, but he was really a distant second. Like there was no comparison between the number of players who said Crosby and McDavid. So, Sidney Crosby, to my mind, still the best player in the game. And I don't think I'm being Pittsburgh biased by thinking that, because, clearly the NHL thinks so as well.
Yeah, I did see that. That was amazing. And I think I think that just speaks volumes about
like
what people
peers, right?
Yes. Yeah. But alongside Sid, Jake Guentzel, my goodness, that goal in overtime last night against Florida, unbelievable. And people were saying, what was better, the pass from Crosby or Jake Guentzel's effort? He is just having an amazing season. 33 goals already.
It's really something. And with like 16 games left, he really has a fair shot at hitting 40 goals this year, which is crazy. I don't think he's hit 30 at any level in his career. So he's in rarefied air already and has a chance to go even beyond that. I saw somebody respond to just something I posted about Guentzel today. It drove me absolutely nuts, because you hear this all the time, and every time I hear it, I just shake my head. Something about, I wish I could add up the number of no names who, somebody like Mario Lemieux was able to give a name to by having them on his line, and clearly making that comparison with Jake Guentzel alongside Sidney Crosby. And I just shake my head, because I think you'd have to not be watching the games to not see how special of a player Jake Guentzel is. I don't think it's a coincidence that when you think of Jake Guentzel the last couple of seasons, all the moments I think you think of are these really big moments. Like, he's been a really impressive playoff performer. And, last night you see him step up with that. He stepped up with that hat trick against Columbus. In the playoffs, he stepped up last night with this big overtime winning goal. He's a guy who, when the games count and you need somebody to step up and just be sort of that big game guy, he's proving to be that kind of guy. And to me, that's not really something you can say about a player who just rides the coattails of a great player.
Right.
That's a special player in his own right, and obviously has some special chemistry with Sidney Crosby. I think you have to. I think Sidney Crosby kind of requires a special type of player to play with him.
Yeah.
I think you have to be fast in terms of your skating, but you also have to be fast in terms of your thinking. You have to be a really smart hockey player. And Jake Guentzel just seems to check all those boxes for knowing where Sid's going to expect him to be. And there you go with the pass. Crosby puts that pass out there, and I don't know how many players would be right there to sort of slow the game down like that and accept the pass and get off that shot. So I just think the chemistry is really unique, and it probably the best line mate Crosby's had, and he's had line mates like Marian Hossa, so that's pretty high praise, but just in terms of fit, I think.
That was actually the debate I saw. I was like, who is Crosby's best ever line mate? And if I mean, he only was with Hossa for like half a season or something like that. So this is it's amazing. And another thing people are saying today is that contract extension they gave to Jake looks like a bargain already.
It's looking pretty smart, right? You wouldn't want to take the chance of that guy getting to the point where he could start barking out higher demands, because he and I thought that when they gave the contract, you could certainly wait, but why? Because I see that kid going down in terms of value, and just a great idea to lock him up and make sure you have a player like that in the fold, and coupled with the unique chemistry with Crosby, because they've tried a number of really great players alongside Sidney Crosby, and the chemistry just hasn't worked. So if you're going to have Sidney Crosby here for the next few years, I think when you have a guy with that kind of special chemistry, lock him up and make sure that he is going to be available to be Sidney Crosby's line mate. That's kind of a no-brainer.
I'll bet they brought in Phil Kessel to be Crosby's guy, and that did not work.
No doubt. It's all, though that was a period of time. It was all the constant, okay, got to find a winger for Crosby, and they just kind of kept trying that revolving door, and then he ends up working a lot better with Evgeny Malkin. So that. Thankfully, I feel like Malkin so often gets slighted in that search. They're constantly looking for who's going to mesh with Crosby, and Malkin just it's kind of like an afterthought. Oh, he gets whoever doesn't mesh with Crosby, but Kessel has Kessel's another issue entirely right now as far as not really being able to find the net, but during his time in Pittsburgh has really meshed pretty well with Evgeny Malkin. So. At least that's been a fit.
The slump that Kessel is in is literally comical now.
Everybody last night thought it was pretty comical.
It was so funny.
I love that moment though. You were at the game. You saw that moment. Like Phil Kessel sees that he's on the jumbotron after yet another great. Opportunity that doesn't go, because none of them go at this point. They're all great opportunities, and you're just left shaking your head. And I thought it was so funny that Phil Kessel is also left shaking his head, like, when is it going to break for me? He sees himself on the jumbotron, and he can't help but laugh.
He just starts laughing.
Yeah, which is the perfect reaction, and
then the crowd loved it. The crowd was like, I mean, it could easily have gone horribly. It could have been, like if there was a water cooler nearby, he could have thrown that, or he could have thrown a fit or something like that. The
crowd loves him, and I think that is the coolest thing about Phil Kessel in Pittsburgh has been that relationship that he's developed with the fans, because think about last summer when the talk was that perhaps the Penguins would look to get rid of Phil Kessel. There was sort of that debate that Jim Rutherford said one thing, Mike Sullivan said another thing. What was true? How injured was he in the playoffs? And certain writers started sort of suggesting that he might be one of the guys on the outside looking in when they made moves over the summer. Fans went crazy. Like, they just did not want to hear his name brought up. They love him. And you compare that to how the relationship was going in Toronto. at the time they traded him, where it seemed like pretty much everybody was ready